12:31, so I'm just going to start. Greetings and welcome to everyone in this IUCN membership information session. My name is Sarah Terkes. I'm the Executive Director of the Australian Committee for IUCN, and I'll be hosting this webinar today along with some excellent guest speakers who I will introduce you to in just a minute. But first, please allow me to do an acknowledgement of country. So I acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Gundungurra people in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales. I also acknowledge the traditional owners of all the different countries our attendees are tuning in from today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people attending this webinar. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge and celebrate the diversity of Indigenous people and their cultures and connections to the land and waters of Australia. So over to our guest speakers. Sorry, can everyone see that slide? It's my pleasure to introduce you to our 4 guest speakers who are sharing their experience and perspectives with us today. First up, we have Kate Noble, who is the Senior Manager of Oceans Policy at WWF Australia. Kate is an environmental and human rights policy specialist focused on ocean protection. We also have Bronwen joining us soon. Bronwen is the Global Lead and Campaign Director of the Seamounts campaign at the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition. Bronwen has worked for more than 2 decades on marine protection and ocean governance. Both Kate and Bronwen will touch upon a joint motion that they submitted to the IUCN Congress about seamounts. We also have Kira Mileham, the Global Director of Strategic Partnerships at the IUCN Species Survival Commission. In this role, Kira is strengthening the efforts of the Species Commission network of 10,000 experts through partnerships with zoos, aquariums, botanic gardens, NGOs, corporates and government agencies. And last, but definitely not least, we have Lupe Moala-Tupou, the Senior Memberships Officer at the IUCN Oceania Regional Office. Lupe is a key liaison for all prospective and current members across Oceania, which includes Australia. So she's a very important person to know. So many thanks to our guest speakers. I'll now do a quick run through of the agenda today. So the agenda has 7 key parts, and there's quite a lot to get through. I'll start by running you through, IUCN, the basics of what it is and what it's about and the various benefits of membership. I'll also touch on the World Conservation Congress and motions and resolutions. And then I'll pass to Kate Noble and Bronwen to discuss the WWF experience as an IUCN member, and to talk about the motion that they recently submitted together. And then we'll go and talk about the expert IUCN commissions. I'll chat a bit about opportunities and benefits of joining, and then I'll pass to Kira, who will do a deep dive on the Species Survival Commission, which is quite unique and very interesting. And then finally, we'll talk about how you can actually join IUCN, and we'll introduce you to Lupe and all the help that's available to members, both prospective and current. So I'll just jump in to these slides. There's quite a bit to get through. I have prepared many text-heavy slides because the intention is to share these slides after the webinar, and hopefully they'll serve as a useful guide. I won't speak to absolutely everything on the slide. This first slide contains several key messages about the uniqueness, the size and the power of IUCN. But the point that I really want to emphasize here is that IUCN is a union. So members have powers and rights and many opportunities for engagement, and it's really up to members to take advantage of those opportunities and exercise those powers. So you are, of course, free to join and support IUCN in a passive way, and that's most welcome, and that's totally fine. But you can also choose to get really actively involved, collaborate and network with other members and amplify your collective voice. Because ultimately, it's our members who decide not only how the union operates, but what the priorities are for nature conservation. So what does IUCN actually do? Well, IUCN brings together all of its members into a neutral, productive, and collaborative platform where everyone is united under the common goal of conserving nature. So members include federal governments, state governments, big and small NGOs, Indigenous peoples organisations, and over 17,000 commissions experts. So IUCN brings all of these people and members together to achieve three key objectives, which is one, inform nature conservation. So produce research, produce knowledge, share tools, influence the global nature conservation agenda, policy and practice, and then implement nature conservation projects on the ground across the world. So it's a full and complete circle of nature conservation objectives. And, when it comes to informing, members have access to IUCN's massive historical repository of reports, data, tools, frameworks, standards, you name it. There's over 70 years of knowledge in the database, and our members are welcome to it. Members are also encouraged to contribute to this knowledge, keep it growing, keep it improving. And here is just a tiny snapshot of a few of the better known tools and knowledge that IUCN has produced. There are many more knowledge products to explore on the portal. Number two, influence. So, we'll keep telling you, IUCN and our members are in a unique and powerful position to influence the global conservation agenda, both in your country and across the globe. And I won't speak too exhaustively because we do have to move fast, but you can read here, here's how you can actually amplify your collective voice and use the collective power of IUCN. And then when it comes to implementation, IUCN offers opportunities to members to get involved in projects. It can help with donor relations and fundraising and also capacity building. There's an IUCN training academy, as well as many different opportunities for ad hoc training and professional development. Wait, there's more. There are many member opportunities around connection, networking, communications, and engagement. So, you can amplify your work in one of the many newsletters and the magazine. You can host and promote an event. You can find and share grants and job opportunities. You can search the knowledge repository. But something here that I think a lot of people don't know about is once you're a member, you can search the entire member database of contacts, which would be over 20,000 people, including commissions experts. You can search everyone in Australia involved in a commission or who's a member. You can search any location, any area of expertise. You can find a person and you can get in contact and you can collaborate. And then just briefly, let's touch on the Congress. This is a huge event that happens every 4 years. Now, not only is the Congress the largest gathering of nature conservation experts, stakeholders, leaders, and decision makers in the world, it's also the highest decision-making body of IUCN. So it's where key position holders in the organisation are elected by members. And it's where priorities for the organisation itself and for nature are raised, debated, negotiated, and voted on by members. So the event in 2025 is expected to attract over 10,000 registered attendees and up to 100,000 members of the general public. So Congress has three parts. The exhibition hall is the part that's open to the public, which we're expecting well over 25,000, perhaps even 100,000 people walking through. The forum is for registered attendees. It's where new science or, innovations are shared. But the members' assembly is for members only. And that's where the negotiations take place and, key decisions are made. For instance, what motions will become the official resolutions and recommendations of the Congress. Now, if you want to learn more about Congress, there's a Congress website. And before I pass to Kate and Bronwen, I'll just briefly touch on motions and resolutions, which might be new terms to some of you. But basically, the Members' Assembly carries a powerful mandate because it's where motions, which are the mechanism for IUCN members to submit and decide on the policy and program of IUCN. And then these motions are voted on at Congress. And once they're adopted, motions either become resolutions or recommendations. Now, resolutions are related to IUCN specifically, and recommendations are for external parties. And I apologize if that doesn't make sense, but I do encourage you to visit the IUCN website, which does have sort of a pro forma on what motions are. And as we've just learned earlier, the motions that have been accepted for Congress this year are now available. So that's on the link there. So there's 124 motions that are going to Congress this year. And one of them is the motion submitted by Kate Noble and Bronwen Golder, which is very exciting. So now I'm super happy to pass to Kate Noble to talk about WWF, their experience with IUCN, and to introduce this motion. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I'm going to speak very briefly to WWF's history of collaboration and working with IUCN, both internationally and in Australia. I'll touch on really quickly our relationship and membership of the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition, DSCC, and I'll then give a very brief overview of the motion that we have worked with DSCC on before I hand to Bronwen to go through a bit of the political context and background and the motion in detail. So WWF, as many of you will know, WWF Australia is part of the global WWF network of around 100 network offices internationally. We work towards a world where people live in harmony with nature, and we have a very long history of collaboration and working with the IUCN that spans many decades, since we first came together in around 1961. Not around 1961, in 1961 exactly. So that long history of collaboration has spanned a wide range of environmental and development issues, including some really long-term partnerships that have spanned around a decade, specifically working on protected and conserved areas and on conservation more broadly. WWF Australia has been around since 1978 and for almost all of that time has been a member of the IUCN. So at both the national and global levels, our membership of and collaboration with IUCN has been absolutely fundamental to driving positive outcomes for the environment. And one of the primary examples from our work in Australia has been our collaboration and coordination around World Heritage listings, for example, specifically the Great Barrier Reef and Ningaloo Reef. Without that collaboration in place, we could not have achieved what we have and what we hope to achieve over the coming years, particularly in relation to protection and conservation of those two reefs. We are also a member of the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition and have been for some time, working together on a range of issues, including but not limited to a moratorium on deep sea mining and also protection and conservation of seamounts and a range of other kind of marine ecosystems. This motion that we have worked together on arose from that close collaboration and specifically on our shared focus on the need to strengthen marine protection to protect vulnerable marine ecosystems and the species that rely on them. So the motion that we have put together, it's motion number 32 of 124, I think you said, Sarah. And it is entitled Protecting Seamounts and Other Vulnerable Marine Ecosystems from Destructive Practices. It is, the lead proponent is WWF Australia. We have 7 co-sponsors. I'll run through them very quickly. Blue Marine Foundation based in the UK. WWF International is a co-sponsor. The Marine Conservation Biology Institute in the US. Natural Resources Defence Council, also the US. Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society. Environment and Conservation Organisations of New Zealand, and the Australian Foundation for Wilderness. We are so pleased to be taking this forward. And I'm now going to hand over, I cannot see that she's online, but I hope she is, to Bronwen Golder from DSCC to talk a bit more to the content of the resolution, what we're hoping to achieve, and some of the political background and context.
Hi, Kate. I'm definitely here. I don't know if you can see me. Can you hear me?
We can do both, Bron.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm sitting in an airport lounge, having just gotten off an airplane, so I apologize for lateness, and a little bit of breathlessness, as I sit and find a quiet corner. So, kia ora tātou katoa, everybody. My name's Bronwen Golder. I'm the director of the Global Deep Sea Fisheries and Seamounts campaign for the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition. And we are a global coalition of 130 organizations. Many of your organizations may well be a member of the DSSC. And that's really the reason that we're here, because our partner, WWF Australia, was responsive to our interest in proposing a seamount motion for the IUCN World Conservation Congress. And it was WWF Australia and a number of our other partners around the world who proposed and co-proposed the motion for submission. And I was very pleased as I turned on my phone today as the plane landed in Auckland to see that it had been accepted. So that was everybody else was very excited. I was just feeling a little jet lagged. A bit of history about the motion and why it's important. In 2004, the IUCN World Conservation Congress adopted a motion to protect vulnerable marine ecosystems, seamounts in particular, from the destructive impacts of bottom trawling on the high seas. That was a motion that came very much from this region because of the concern about the impact of bottom trawling on corals and sponges and fish stocks across the Pacific region. And a previous leadership from across the Pacific region had come obviously on drift net fishing as well, and bringing an end to that sort of atrocity on the high seas was incredibly important. So in 2004, a motion was presented and adopted with only a handful of dissent, really, and that coming from countries that were bottom trawling on the high seas, or at that time in 2004, and this is before a number of regional fisheries management organizations, or RFMOs, were established. A number of states were quite resistant to the idea that you could regulate fishing activity on the high seas. Over the past 20 years, there have been 9 subsequent resolutions passed by the United Nations and the members of the United Nations calling for the full protection of vulnerable marine ecosystems on the high seas, including seamounts, hydrothermal vents, and cold water corals. There has been progress over the past 20 years. We have seen the number of vessels drop from somewhere in the 30s to probably a handful of vessels now that are still bottom trawling on seamounts. Many people would ask, in fact, those fishing states ask, why are you so worried about those final vessels? I think unless we show as a global community that the commitments that we make over 20 years and the standards of protection for vulnerable marine ecosystems around the world mean something, that our words and our commitments at the United Nations mean something, then even if it's just one vessel, we still haven't honoured those commitments and those resolutions. So in bringing this motion to the floor in partnership with WWF Australia and others, our call is really to the credibility and the validity of the multilateral voice, of our collective voice, that when we collectively say we are committed to protecting vulnerable marine ecosystems in the deep seas from a particularly destructive activity, and we commit to that consistently for 20 years, after 20 years, it's time to say, we've done it, right? We have achieved fully and finally the purpose and the outcomes of those commitments. And it's not just the IUCN motion from 2004 or the consecutive UNGA resolutions. The CBD has passed resolutions on protecting vulnerable marine ecosystems and seamounts from bottom trawling on the high seas. We have had the European Community say the same thing. The Pacific Islands Forum passed or adopted a resolution calling for an end to bottom trawling on the high seas. This is a consistent call from governments, civil society, to ensure that the integrity of those really vulnerable systems are protected. So 20 years felt like a good moment in time to say that this was important. The pressures on those vulnerable marine ecosystems, the United Nations World Ocean Assessments called bottom trawling the most significant current threat to the deep ocean. We know that there are other threats. We know climate change is hugely significant. We know the prospectivity of deep sea mining is challenging. We look at carbon capture, we look at mesopelagic fisheries, and there is concern. But right now, in 2025, bottom trawling is the most significant threat. It's real, it is still happening, and we hope this motion will be really a call to action in a sequence of calls to action that by the United Nations General Assembly in 2026, we can say there is no longer bottom trawling on seamounts on the high seas.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Bronwen. That was brilliant. And I hope everyone, heard what I heard with Bronwen and Kate, which is that this is what can happen when you work with other members and use your collective voice, as Bronwen said. If nobody has any more questions, I'll move on to talk about the commissions now. So we've got a few slides on, oh gosh, go back. Excuse me while I find the slide. Okay. Can everybody see that slide? Expert commissions?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'll give you a quick run through on, what is a commission. Commissions are networks of scientists and experts who provide IUCN with knowledge and advice. So there are currently 17,000 experts from around the world working in our commissions, and I'm very happy to say that over 1,000 of those experts are from Australia. So considering how small our country is, the fact that we're contributing so much to our commissions is a statistic that I'm actually really proud of, and I think we should be too. So what do commissions do? Well, the members work together generally in specialist or thematic groups to produce knowledge and advice for IUCN. And so every commission and group has a different goal, different mandate, but in general, it's about producing knowledge and tools to improve outcomes for nature conservation. So if you're thinking about joining a commission, there's some pretty simple criteria to think about. If you have some expertise in an area that you'd like to share, but in particular, if you want to learn from, network and collaborate with other experts in your field. So outside of a university platform, IUCN is probably the next best place in environmental science to collaborate with other experts in your field. And perhaps you feel you've got some skills that aren't being used and you want to help enable a just world that values and conserves nature. We'd really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us. And there are lots of benefits to being a member of a commission. So again, just talking about the networking and collaborations part, you can learn from experts in your field. You can also share your own knowledge, amplify your voice, get more visibility, get a bigger platform. And you also get discounts on IUCN events and academy courses. When it comes to our commissions, there are 7. I've only highlighted 6 here. These are the ones you can directly apply to. The Species Survival Commission that Kira will talk to in a minute is a lot more selective. It's incredibly popular and oversubscribed. But basically, there are There are 7 commissions. Here are the 6 that you can apply to. And just if we touch on, for instance, the Commission on Ecosystem Management, there are some truly incredible Australian experts leading groundbreaking work in that commission. So, for instance, the Red List of Ecosystems group is led by Emily Nicholson, an Australian professor. The Global Ecosystems Typology group is being led by a team of incredible Australian scientists. And then we've also got the Green Status of Ecosystems Task Force, again, led by Australians. So if you're an Australian government agency or NGO looking for experts in a particular field, I mean, I think you'll find that across our commissions, there are many amazing Australian experts willing to share their knowledge with you. How to join? It's really as simple as going to the website and applying. So you go to that link there, you create an account, create a profile, complete the application, and then submit it. It's really that simple. Your application will be reviewed just to check that you're eligible, and a response will be sent to you. And once you're accepted into a commission, you can choose to join smaller groups within your specialty or your area of expertise. As you'll see, membership to the Species Survival Commission is currently by invitation only. I think I'll let Kira talk a bit more about that. And here we go. I'll pass over to you, Kira, now. Kira's going to speak about the Species Survival Commission itself, how and why to join, some new Australian specialist groups, and opportunities for partnerships and collaborations. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And hopefully, Kira, you'll be able to share your screen now. There you go.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Just 1 second. No. Oh. Sorry. Just give me 1 second. Okay, hopefully you can all see my screen. Thanks very much, Sarah. As Sarah said, I'm Dr. Kira Mileham. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships globally for the Species Survival Commission. And I'm going to talk a little bit around the slightly different model of the SSC. I certainly wouldn't say that we're oversubscribed. We are just the largest of all of the commissions of the IUCN. So we have over 10,000 members now. So of those 17,000 members across the 7 commissions, more than 10,000 of them sit within the SSC. So we do have a different structure just because we're a lot larger, but I'll talk through a little bit around the way that we operate and definitely the ways that we'd love for you to be involved. But firstly, I just want to kind of touch on some of what we've been talking about in the webinar so far today around why join IUCN. The team have mostly talked so far around why join IUCN at an organisational level and become an organisational member of the union. And the commission's really at that individual expertise of why join at the individual level to contribute your expertise and knowledge. But conceptually and from an ethos perspective, I think the rationale is the same at a high level. It's really, and I think this quote from Sally Jewell, the former Secretary of the United States for the Secretary of Interior, challenged the IUCN World Conservation Congress in Hawaii 2016 with this quote. She said that conservation needs to move beyond random acts of kindness and instead mobilize strategic coordinated action. And for me, whether you're talking about an individual working group within a commission, a whole commission, or an organizational membership and the collective membership of IUCN, or the entire what we call one program approach of IUCN, which combines the secretariat, so the officers of staff of IUCN around the world, the organizational members or the volunteer commissions, all of those combined can mobilize to really scale up this strategic coordinated action and take the work that we're doing beyond these sort of fantastic, really well-intentioned, sometimes incredibly impactful conservation projects, and instead mobilize an entire local, national, regional, and global community for the conservation impacts and outcomes. So that's just an overall approach to how I see the structure of IUCN fitting together. But the SSC is, I think my head might be in the way of my slides, but I'm wrestling with Teams a little bit here, but we'll circulate these slides. So if you miss any of the content on my slides, you can take a look a little bit later. But the SSC, as I mentioned, is currently a global network of 10,388 members across 186 countries. So we really operate to bring together those individual experts across lots of different taxonomic, thematic, or geographic scopes to share information and knowledge and expertise around species conservation across those three areas that Sarah was talking about earlier. So to inform, to influence, and implement around species conservation specifically. John Paul, the chair of the SSC, is very excited and very proud that last year we were officially awarded a Guinness World Record as the largest scientific conservation network globally. But our mission is to influence, encourage, and assist societies throughout the world, particularly with the provision of knowledge, supporting the development of policies and guidelines, facilitating really practical conservation planning processes in a multi-stakeholder context. So really uniting and convening different expertise from different organizations in a neutral way in order to develop holistic conservation planning for species at an individual or a spatial area planning. And then also obviously catalyzing action on the ground and in the water, and sharing best practice and knowledge and success stories as well, so that we're working as that global community, but applying knowledge at the local and national level. If you have any background in communication or branding, this slide might give you an eye twitch, as it does me. But this is just a splattering of our different specialist groups. And the reason I'm including this slide is just to show there's a huge diversity in the specialist groups within SSC. And they are organised, as I mentioned a minute ago, around taxonomic groups. So it could be the amphibian specialist group that covers about 3,000 species, or the African elephant specialist group, or we have a number of different fungi specialist groups. So we span all plants, animals, and fungi, and obviously terrestrial, marine, and freshwater. But the specialist groups are organised around expertise and conservation need. So they do vary in their size and their function. That's the taxonomic groups. We also have what we call thematic or cross-cutting groups. So things like our genetic conservation specialist group, human-wildlife conflict and coexistence, climate change, conservation planning, wildlife health. So these kind of core overarching themes, and those thematic groups bring together experts on those fields of influence, and then they work with the taxonomic specialist groups around the world to try and implement best practice and to also understand the needs and opportunities and priorities in those themes. And then the newest type of SSC group is the national species specialist group. So we're now also organising groups at the national level to bring together cross-disciplinary, cross-taxonomic experts to really help us connect with stakeholders in country, IUCN members, IUCN committees, and government agencies and national biodiversity action plans and strategies to really work on how do we achieve some of those national level targets, and how can IUCN SSC really support in delivery of those national targets. And this is just a quick representation of the breakout. Obviously, we're quite mammal heavy still, but we're working really hard to expand the membership and the number of groups in invertebrates and plants and fungi and fish. But this is starting to balance out a little bit. We also do have currently we have 470 members within Australia. Sorry, we have 470 members within Oceania. 450 of those are within Australia. So we do have a lot of work to increase our membership across the Pacific Islands and New Zealand. But we do have, as Sarah was saying before, we have a really strong representation of SSC members here in Australia, that if you're not a member and you work on species conservation, it would be really great to talk to you. And this is that's the representation of the rest of the SSC membership across 186 countries. So just quickly expanding a little bit on what we do. We assess and monitor the status of biodiversity. Obviously, most people that are familiar with IUCN are familiar with the IUCN Red List. The SSC really is the mechanism and driving force behind undertaking most of those Red List assessments, which are now more than 160,000 species assessed. But that's obviously a huge ongoing undertaking that's largely driven by volunteers around the world. And there's lots of work that happens at the Australian level and lots of ongoing work to make sure that that's aligned with the species assessment process within Australia, and how we can best support that and avoid duplication between the IUCN global processes and the Australian national processes as well. But we analyse and communicate threats, we develop those tools, develop best practice, And we really, as Sarah's spoken a lot about, convene expertise, particularly to address common threats or urgent priority actions that need to be undertaken, and to inform things like CITES. I mean, we are the technical advisors to CITES, so any proposals for CITES listings for species comes to SSC specialist groups for input. We play a key role in CMS, in CBD, and all of those international fora, as well as work on conservation action planning and implementation on the ground. But all of our work spans across this what we call the species conservation cycle. It's not rocket science. It's really just a performance management cycle applied to species conservation. But we encourage all of our specialist groups to work on assessing the current status of those species or the current landscape of that theme, to develop comprehensive action plans that are inclusive and participatory, and then to make sure that we're implementing actions on the ground. We also, at the same time, proactively build a network and strengthen the capacity and the networking opportunities for people within the Commission, and try to communicate the work that we do. Within an Australian context, we also have, not only do we have those 450 SSC members of global groups within Australia, just last month we approved 2 new Australian species specialist groups. So we now have an Australian overall species specialist group, which is working to unite fungi, plant and animal, both invertebrate and vertebrate expertise across Australia from an SSC perspective. So again, those individual expertise coming together in a volunteer capacity to try to provide objective advice and data and opportunities, and work with us on better connecting national processes to global tools where it makes sense to do so. And then we also have an Australian plant specialist group, which sort of sits alongside the Australian species specialist group, but it was felt by the leaders of that group that we do need a specific plant focus to really mobilise more around opportunities for plant conservation, given the scale of threat and the potential for stronger collaboration around plant conservation here in Australia. If you'd like to be in touch with either of those groups, they're certainly not oversubscribed. They're brand new, so please do get in touch with myself or one of the co-chairs of the groups, and we can help connect you with those groups. Sarah mentioned, actually, I'll just go back one slide. Sarah mentioned that it's a little bit of a different process with the SSC. It is still, it's not necessarily by invitation only. It's just that it's managed by each of the specialist groups, the membership. So we don't have, unlike the other 6 commissions, we don't have a central process for coordinating membership. And the reason for that is because we have some groups like, sorry, my dogs have just decided to lose their minds. But the reason for that is because we have some groups like the shark specialist group, which gets 50 requests for membership around the globe each week. And they just, as a volunteer group, can't sustain that level of membership. However, some of our fungi groups are desperately trying to find more mycological expertise around the world and would love people to join. Doesn't mean you can't join the shark specialist group. You just have to demonstrate the expertise that you particularly bring to the group and the ways in which you would help move it forward. So you can reach out to any specialist group chair, but the membership of those 197 groups is slightly different across each group and is at the discretion of the chairs of the group. So you can go to the SSC website that's within the IUCN overall website, and just search the directory of SSC groups, and on there you'll find the chairs of the groups and their contact details, and you can either go through me and reach out to me and I can help put you in touch with them, or you can go through that website and reach out to any of the specialist group chairs and ask them whether it just put an expression of interest in that you would like to participate in those groups, or you can talk to them about what their process looks like. And some of them, it's an application process. Some of them will just welcome you straight away with open arms if you have expertise in that field. But if you have any trouble with that, please do reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help facilitate those conversations. And then just lastly, while SSC, like all of the commissions, is around convening individual expertise as opposed to the organisational membership of the IUCN Union, there are many opportunities to partner as an organisation with the SSC. So the membership of SSC is at the individual expertise level, but you can, if your organisation wants to work more on species conservation alongside these 10,000 experts that we have, or alongside one of the specific groups that might align with your vision or priorities, then there are lots of opportunities to do so. We can work together on developing tools, doing situation analyses, so things like we've done a global situation analysis on the impact of systemic pesticides on species, on We did one on emerging zoonotic diseases in the face of COVID. We've done one on the effect of food oils on biodiversity. So we do these kind of situation analyses, often in response to motions that are put forward. We also develop best practice guidelines, things like best practice around ex situ management for species conservation, management of confiscated species, reintroduction and translocation guidelines that are used a lot here in Australia. There's opportunities to partner on projects with specific specialist groups. If you have a strong focus on sharks, connecting with the shark specialist group and understanding the overall global shark strategy that the SSC works on, but also sharing skills and ideas and best practices around the work that you're doing here in Australia or internationally, and how that fits in with that global community is a really great way to access the benefits that Sarah already mentioned, amplifying your work, sharing your work, but also learning from the wider community as well. And an example of the event partnerships is things like the Conservation Translocation Conference that was held in Perth 2 years ago with the Conservation Translocation Specialist Group, and brought together hundreds of people from around the world in Perth with lots of organisational partners here in Australia, many of whom are IUCN members, to really move forward on training and best practices around conservation translocation and lesson sharing. And then finally, you can also partner, particularly with a specialist group, if you want a long-term ongoing partnership or want to be working with IUCN as a global hub of expertise on a particular discipline or theme. We have partnerships called Centres for Species Survival, and that's where an organisational partner that has a strong focus that lines up with a particular specialist group will come alongside us and then put on a staff team of at least one staff member who works full-time on developing a collaborative work plan within that focused area, and then it becomes a hub or a catalyst for the conservation assessment, planning and action for that theme or taxa or region. And we have 20 of those Centres for Species Survival currently across 12 countries around the world and 6 continents. But shortly we've got 15 that are about to be launched, and that will represent a staff team that's decentralized within all of these partner organizations of almost 70 full-time staff members by the end of this year, working in partnership with the SSC and creating this really fantastic decentralized staff capacity within these organizations that sits alongside our volunteer expertise of the SSC to amplify our collective impact, again, across assessment, planning and action. So that's kind of the opportunities and the models. I also want to just take a moment to thank also the donors to the SSC. We are a volunteer network, so we're a volunteer commission on behalf of IUCN, and so all of the work that we do to support these 10,000 experts around the world is through organisational partnerships that provide us funding in order to operate, so for people like myself to have our jobs. And just to finish off, again, coming back to that point of for me, the point of IUCN and participating in the commissions or as an organisational member of IUCN is really around organising our collective expertise and scaling up for that strategic coordinated action in the face of ongoing threats to biodiversity, so that we can together work on solutions and be driving this impact at the scale that we need. So thank you so much, and I'll hand back to Sarah. Sarah, you're on mute.
Sorry, everyone. I was thanking you, Kira, profusely for your excellent presentation. And I just wanted to reinforce what Kira said. So if you go to the Commission's website and you want to sign up to join, it will tell you, the Species Commission is by invitation only, but take that with a grain of salt, and we will send you information on how to circumvent that. So thank you, Kira. That's fantastic information to know. And now for our final part of the webinar, it's all about how exactly do you join IUCN? So this time as a member. So again, just like joining a commission, it's an online application form. And when you go to join.iucn.org, you'll be met with an online application form as well as some really handy reference documents. So you can read through all of those at your leisure. If you have any questions throughout the process, your focal point is Lupe, who we'll introduce you to in a moment. So she can help guide you through your eligibility, any questions you have about the application process and so on. But some deadlines to be aware of. So every quarter, IUCN processes the applications from that quarter, and then the review process takes several months. So I'll just walk you through the actual process. So step one, you apply online, and that can take a couple of days to get you all set up. And then there's the review process that's conducted internally by IUCN, and that can take several months. Your application for membership will be circulated to other members, and other members, if they have any objections, can raise those. I mean, generally there won't be an objection unless you are I guess, perhaps a corporate with a foundation that's trying to greenwash or something to that effect. Do you know what I mean? If you have clear nature conservation objectives, it's generally pretty straightforward. And then Lupe will be in touch to onboard you, which is a wonderful process. So the Oceania Regional Office, the reason we've brought them in today is this office is the service office and the focal point for all members across Oceania, including Australia and our Pacific Island friends and New Zealand. And if you have any inquiries, in the first instance, please contact Lupe. She's your new best friend. And so it's my pleasure now to pass over to Lupe. If you're ready to speak, Lupe, you can talk through your role and all the different functions that you perform in your role. And I'll just stop sharing my screen now so that you can speak. And I think you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Hello, Pulavinaka to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to join this very important webinar session. As Sarah said, my name is Lupe Tupo, Mola Tupo. I just joined IUCN in January and about 2 months now. I'm still learning how to perform effectively my role as membership officer, but I'm very happy to welcome everyone. I am the new membership focal point here for Oceania, based in Suva at Oceania Regional Office. My role, to me personally, I am like the middleman, connecting our people with IUCN. I am the primary contact for all the countries, all the members in the Oceania, and I'm very happy to help you with any queries any question related to membership. I am very happy to communicate with you. As Sarah said, you can send me an email anytime. But for me, it's important that we connect and we know each other. You know my contact details, and you can contact me anytime. Most of the week, I always work very late in responding to some of the members when they have questions, and because members are very important to me, and because I'm serving the members, I always make sure that I have a very good communication with them. I build the relationship stronger and trying my best to bring on more people, more members into IUCN. So I'm providing support. If you have any question, if you want to apply for IUCN, you need help, I'm very happy to support you, to make sure that you have a very smooth joining IUCN. And I can support you with anything that you would like to know about IUCN. Although I'm still new, but I'm trying my best to help you when you reach out to me. And so far at this time, when I started IUCN, some of the questions still goes to HQ, but recently I started to receive not much question coming from our members. But so far at the moment, when I started at IUCN, I managed to support one state members, and now they are now a state member. They are the latest state member of IUCN, which is which is the Republic of Marshall Island. So far, when I started here, I was focusing Marshall Island because they reached out for my support. And yesterday, we finally received that they have done their payment. Like I said, my communication with Marshall Island is like my normal communication every day. I keep following up them, just provide them support, helping them to make sure that they understand and have the knowledge to do their application, understanding the context in the Pacific, especially with here in Oceania. Most of our members, they really need to hear from you instead of sending them the documents. They will ask me to, please, Lupe, can you help summarizing? So those are my role. I need to I work closely with them, like summarize everything. What is the easiest way for them, but to make sure that they're in the right track. Yeah, but I'm very happy that we finally see each other, and I'm looking forward that we can continue to cooperate. And like I said, I am here as the membership focal point for Oceania. I'm very happy to answer any question coming from you. But so far, Sarah already provided all the information in the website, but I'm still here. If you have any problems with login, trying to access in the portal, you can reach out to me. But bear with me, I don't have the control. I have to communicate with HQ to provide the access if any of our members cannot access. So anything related to membership, I'm very happy to support. I think that is all from me. Sarah,
Okay, thank you.
I'm
Thank you,
open for
Lupe.
any question. Thank you.
That's great. And I had one question. Is the Marshall Islands now a member as a country? Did they sign up as a state country?
Yes, they are state country.
Fantastic. Well, that's great news.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
and
you.
yes, and I'm sure our members will look forward to your I guess, are you Tongan? Your Tongan hospitality. It's a beautiful Pacific way of doing things. And so it's a nice experience for our members as well. So thank you, Lupe.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sarah.
No worries. And so, I mean, we've got a few minutes for questions. I just wanted to put up one final slide while we actually, I guess, ask for questions around the room. So it's just basically, if we miss out on answering any questions today, we will be sending around an information pack, including all the slides. So just email me if you've got anything that hasn't been answered today. We'll work together with the presenters who presented today to get those answers to you. And now that I'm sharing my screen, I can't actually see the chat. So does anyone else want to, Kira?
I can see the chat. There's a question from Bob that it would be great if Sarah or Lupe, if you could answer around the cutoff for membership before Congress. So when you have to have applied for in order to participate in Congress.
Great question. And so the final cutoff would be June 30. It's our understanding that the membership team are going to do everything they can to review everything in time before Congress, but really get started as soon as you can. I mean, if you had the time over the next 3 days, you could submit an online application before March 31st, which is the next cutoff date. So if you're really keen, you might want to just go for it right now and see how you go. But otherwise, the final cutoff for participation in Congress would be the end of June. Kira?
Yeah, just a different point that I didn't make during my presentation, but one thing that I've noticed in the participants that there are some people that I know from the zoo and aquarium and botanic garden communities. I just want to give a quick update that if you've looked into becoming an IUCN member in the past, it was reasonably cost prohibitive, particularly for venue-based organisations, because the dues for IUCN membership is on a sliding scale, traditionally by your operating budget. For organisations that operate these large-scale venue-based organisations that have operating budgets well beyond their conservation budget, it's been really quite challenging to become an IUCN member. So in acknowledgement of that, over the last couple of years, IUCN Council has been looking at ways to address that. And so there's it was just introduced sort of last year. There's a new dues structure for what we call venue-based organisations. So that includes things like museums, even sporting facilities, zoos, aquariums, botanic gardens, and others that run those venues. And so now your membership fee is calculated based on your conservation budget. So that's something that Lupe can help you with if you are interested in reaching out. But just to flag, if you've looked into it in the past, just to kind of flag that it's now a different structure, and we'd be happy to work through that with you or answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Kira. I'm just looking through the chat now for any other questions. I think that might be it. We did have an emailed question about commissions that I hope I've covered. Basically, anybody can apply to a commission, even if you're an early career researcher. If you're so I think it was Jess who submitted that. So yeah, please, why not just have a go and join the commission? Worst they can do is say no, but chances are they'll say yes. Hi, Bob. When it comes to saving the chat, I think it might be me that has to save the chat and share it. I'm not sure if participants can actually save it unless you copy and paste.
Yeah,
Kira?
That's true. Just on your point about early career participation in the commissions, don't let what I've talked about with the Species Survival Commission turn you off as well. The National Species Specialist Group, one of the intentions of creating that new structure of group at the national level is around providing a space for participation from more early career participants in the SSC. So particularly if you're working on species conservation within Australia, whether it's on plants or a different taxonomic group, please do reach out in particular to those Australian species specialist groups. If your work is international and focused on international species, then by all means, again, follow the same process I've talked about. We're encouraging many of our groups to specifically create early career structures within their specialist groups to build succession and engagement. But we particularly see those national species specialist groups as an opportunity to work with a much broader range of species experts within a country, even if you're early career. So do reach out and we'd love to see the overall average age of our specialist groups coming down a little bit.
Thank you, Kira. And further to that, there are also some commissions with active youth groups. So the World Commission on Protected Areas has a special youth group led by Josh Taylor, who's Australian. So he's now the global coordinator of the youth network. So yeah, a lot of commissions are doing what Kira is saying, is reaching out and building, I guess, succession planning for future experts in these commissions. Landscape restoration, I would say that would be the Commission for Ecosystem Management, Carolyn. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
In fact, there's a special restoration thematic group in there, and they're fantastic.
Another thing that I put in the chat, but just to highlight, is one thing within the commissions, certainly within the SSC, I think it's the same with the other commissions, but within the SSC, I mentioned we have those 197 working groups. If you look at the directory with the link that I've put in the chat, and you are looking for a particular group, but it doesn't exist, we certainly have lots and lots of gaps across themes and taxonomic groups and countries where we don't have a specialist group. The SSC is very bottom up. So we don't create groups and then try to fill them. We respond to proposals to create groups. So if you, for example, like a real life example that we're working through at the moment, somebody approached us and said, the World Protected Areas has a working group on tourism and protected areas, but we don't have a similar one around species impacts of ecotourism. And so we're working with someone on a proposal because they would like to convene and lead a new specialist group that sits between the World Commission on Protected Areas and the SSC on the impacts of ecotourism on species, both positive and negative. And so they're starting to convene a new specialist group. So if you'd like to propose a new specialist group, again, get in touch with our team and we'll tell you the process for that. We usually don't respond. Well, I mean, we respond, but we don't move forward on a group. If you come to us and say, we want you to create a group, go and create a group. We'll say, if you would like to create a group, here is the tools and processes. So like everything else that Sarah has talked about, IUCN works best if you're proactively engaging and using the processes and the platform of IUCN to drive forward your skills and your network and your community around priority issues. It's the same within the Commission. We'll respond and say, that's wonderful. If you have the energy or know someone that does, propose a group and we'll support you all the way. So thanks, Sarah.
Excellent. Thanks, Kira. And it's now 1:30, so I think we'll sign off. But we will follow up with everyone who's registered with all the slides and some extra information and the chat log as well. So you can see the questions that have been answered. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much to our presenters. Again, thank you for coming and sharing with us. Most appreciated.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lupe.
Bye, Sarah.